circles. Al Unser is changing that. The Penske team's newest driver is having one terrific season. On the streets of Long Beach, Al took his first win in Roger's car. And then the big one. Junior chased teammate Emerson Fittipaldi in the closing laps. An MO mistake gave Al his second Indianapolis win. Last week at Milwaukee, Al scored again. Now 3 in a row with Penske cars 1, 2, and 3. But the season is more than Al. It is Penske. Emerson Fittipaldi scored the Phoenix win. The Nigel Bennett designed chassis is fast, no matter what engine it carries. The only other chassis to win this year was Michael Andretti's Reynard, taking the season's first race at Surfers Paradise in Australia. A podium finish for father and son. The question mark is red number 1, defending PPG champion Nigel Mansell and his Newman Haas Lola. His season has been less than spectacular, with no wins thus far. And at Phoenix, a big mistake. Today, Nigel and the rest ask the same question. Can Al Unser be stopped? From the magnificent Belle Isle in the Detroit River, just off of Detroit on the border between the United States and Canada, ABC Sports presents the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. The official ceremonies are already underway down at the pit entrance. Let's go a little further up the pit road to Gary Gerald.
Paul, the recent dominance of the Penske team could be very seriously challenged here in the streets of Belle Isle today. And the man who's expected to do the bulk of the challenging, Nigel Mansell, who starts in the pole position. He had an electrifying qualifying run yesterday, broke his own track record by 1.5 seconds. He's a half second faster than the fastest of the Penskes. And that's Al Unser Jr., who's just alongside in the front row. Paul Tracy, Emerson Fittipaldi behind him in row 2. And if that's not enough incentive to beat that Penske juggernaut today, consider also $135,000 Marlboro bonus on the line if Nigel Mansell can win this race from the pole position. Now let's go back to row 3 and Jack Arute.
Gary, this logo was missing from the Indianapolis 500, but it's back in row 3 and back in Detroit with a vengeance. Part of the engine package for Rahal Hogan Racing, and Bobby Rahal has qualified quite well. It's a new, updated version of the Honda engine behind Bobby Rahal today, and people must remember that it took 3 years in Formula One competition before Honda was victorious. Many people feel it'll be sooner in IndyCar competition. Then there's the story of the 4th Brazilian in IndyCar competition. Mauricio Gugelmin, teammate to Michael Andretti, has qualified on the outside of that 3rd row. He hopes to join his teammate Michael Andretti in victory lane. Andretti winning for Reynard first time out in Australia. He qualified far better than his teammate Andretti did here in Detroit. Paul?
Well, a little bit earlier, there was a threat of rain in the area. It seems to have dissipated for now, but we're going to be watching these skies behind us over downtown Detroit because that is from where the weather comes. Now, we mentioned Michael Andretti. He is definitely a car to watch here today. Every race at Detroit that he's been in, he's been starting on the pole. Not so today. He starts 17th. In his one victory in 1990, Michael Andretti ran every lap at the head of the race. But Michael Andretti now has a challenge ahead of him. The road courses are beginning. Michael scored his only win this year on a road course. In this next series of races for IndyCar, if Michael is going to get into that points fight, it is going to happen now. Well, now, though, we are ready for all 28 Indy cars to accept that command to start their engines. So let's go down at the starting line for those famous words.
Detroit's Mayor Dennis Archer.
Drivers, start your engines!
So there they are, Mario Andretti ready for his last start here in Detroit. The Penske team confident of victory once again. We will see if that happens. When we come back, we have more leading up to the start of the Grand Prix here in Detroit.
Alex Garcia enjoys his job, but after work is when he really gets his kicks. At IT.
The Renaissance Center, the centerpiece of downtown Detroit, not far away from Belle Isle. Just below the shot, the the island itself and the racetrack. The Indy cars are already rolling on their parade lap. So let's take a look at the starting grid. On the pole is Nigel Mansell. He has only won once on a road course in his IndyCar career, alongside Allinger Jr. looking for 4 in a row. In row 2, Paul Tracy, a third last week at Milwaukee, and Emerson Fittipaldi, a 2-time winner here in Detroit. Row 3, Mauricio Gugelmin, the fastest rookie qualifier, and Bobby Rahal, the winner of the first race here on the island. In row 4, rookie Jacques Villeneuve. And Teo Bobby. In the first IndyCar race in Detroit, he finished 4th. Row 5, Mario Andretti and Robbie Gordon. Row 6, Stefan Johansson and Adrian Fernandez. Row 7, Ari Luyendyk and Raul Boesel. In the 8th row, Mike Groff and Christian Danner. Row 9, the 90 winner, Michael Andretti and Brian Herta. Row 10, Jimmy Vasser and Frederick Ekblom. Row 11, Scott Goodyear and Marco Greco. In the 12th row, Mark Smith and Dominic Dobson. Alessandro Zampedri and Scott Sharp make up row 13. And the 14th row, Buddy Lazier and Willie T. Ribbs. So that's the way they line up as the wind picks up here on the edge of the Detroit River. The question, Sam, is can the Penske team be beaten?
Oh, Paul, I think things are still wide open. After all, this is only the 6th of 16 races. And I believe personally that Nigel Mansell, the defending champion, is about to come on really strong. When you think of what's going on in the world of hockey with the Rangers and the Canucks, it just proves that in pro sports today, anything can happen.
No question about that. But Bobby Unser, the man who wins today, what's it going to take?
Well, Paul, I think that the driver that wins here today is going to be one with real courage. The track has mostly medium and fast turns. The slow turns really have no place to pass. Therefore, I think that passing here is going to become a factor of being brave and taking some real chances.
All right, so the cars are rolling. We're ready to start the pace lap, and when we come back, the green flag will come out over the Indy cars. Back at the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix, the Indy cars are now on the pace lap itself. As the pace car begins to pull just a bit away, here is the challenge as we look ahead to 77 laps here. And Danny Sullivan, last year's winner, of course, is not racing in the Indy cars this year. Earliest possibility, we think, for a pit stop would be on lap 15. The view back from Nigel Mansell's car, one of the onboard cameras we'll have for you, as well as this magnificent view over the left-hand side of Robbie Gordon's car and Michael Andretti's car as well. Further onboard cameras throughout in the field as well. We'll show them to you during the running of the race. Remember, the start here was so controversial last year. The rule is the pole sitter has to get to the line first. The pole sitter is on his way. In fact, a good start over the line. He gets well ahead of second place as he comes to the line. One engine could already be in trouble. We've seen a couple of puffs there as Mansell takes the lead of the race.
Well, Mansell sure didn't let happen what happened last year. He had about 2 car lengths ahead of Little Al last year. He got snookered a little bit by Emerson Fittipaldi.
And Mike Groff already off the course and into the tire barrier. That will bring out a local yellow. The IndyCar safety team already there helping him.
It's amazing what these tire barriers do. The drivers sometimes drive in there well over 100 miles an hour. It doesn't ever seem to hurt much, Paul.
With Team Penske in pursuit, Nigel Mansell pulling away from the field. Remember that last year he did not do well on road courses. A great surprise to everybody. But now Little Al begins to close on Nigel Mansell.
Mansell's success last year depended on his skill on the ovals, which he had never run on. You mentioned that he wasn't good on road courses, Paul. He must now reverse that trend this year if he's going to be champion. Bunch of road courses coming up in the next few weeks. He must excel if he's going to erode the Penske lead.
Paul Tracy sits in third, Emerson Fittipaldi in fourth. And then Mauricio Gugelmin as he comes off of the corner with Bobby Rahal finding new power in that Honda engine. Comes off just behind Gugelmin.
On that Honda engine, Bobby Rahal has an engine that is now firing with the same order as the Cosworth Fords and as the Elmore engine, Paul, and it seems to have made a lot more horsepower. What that means is they fired 2 pistons simultaneously.
On the nose of Bobby Rahal's car, Teo Bobby just behind, Gugelmin just ahead.
Bobby, it means, of course, the engine sounds differently. They are aiming for torque.
Ari Luyendyk into the pits. Unscheduled, obviously. We'll keep track of that. Back with Bobby Rahal. He runs in 6th.
The big changes to that engine were to get it more torque, which would help it accelerate, of course, off the turns, which would be ideal for this track. And he qualified better today or yesterday than he has in some time.
People that have normal engines drive on the highway fire one piston at a time. The difference being, Sam, is explain a little further, is they fire 2 pistons at one time, makes an 8-cylinder almost like a 4-cylinder.
2 cars with an early visit to the pits. One of them you saw a moment ago, Arie Luyendyk, but Gary Gerald also Stefan Johansson.
Indeed, Paul. The real problem is they came in and the right rear had just been totally shredded and demolished. We don't know where the contact was, but he obviously was in a first lap incident. They've made the change, fresh rubber. He's back out, but now at the back of the field.
And take a look at Al Unser Jr. as he comes around Mansell, and little Al picks up the lead.
Yes, and you know, passing is so hard here. I almost missed that when it happened so fast.
Yeah, like you said, it's hard here, and he just zoomed right around.
Yeah.
Now Paul Tracy comes up to challenge.
Now Paul cannot afford to sit behind Mansell too long because little Al is getting away. Obviously Mansell's not working as good here. There he goes right there, and he knocked him out. That was
clean pass, and I think Paul Tracy knows that he cannot at this stage in the season, with only 1/3 place to give him points, afford to make any mistakes. He made a mistake at Indy. He made others. He must drive clean races.
We were all sitting here cringing, Sam, when that pass happened because we didn't know if it was going to fit or not.
So now it's Emerson Fittipaldi that begins to line up on Nigel Mansell. Though here in the early laps, Mansell can take his time. Here was the pass as Al Unser Jr. came right down to the inside on the exit of the corner. Boy, nice piece of driving there. Is that chassis handling well?
And the idea is, of course, to block him out, which little Al has him blocked now where he can't do anything. And if you notice, straightaways are so short, Paul, he had to really get an early start at him.
Take a look at this. This is the accident involving Mike Groff, which also involved Luyendyk and Johansson. But Groff hopped across one of the barrier strips and straight on into the tires.
Now, sometimes Mansell has let the others set the pace early in the race. I doubt very much that that's what he had in mind here. I think Mansell is going as hard as he can now, but we have seen him in other races play the role of the fox, drop back a little bit.
But you could tell, Sam, he wasn't going to do that here because you could see that start. Mansell was going at it from the very beginning.
Emerson Fittipaldi now closes on Nigel Mansell. That lens will push the following car back just a little bit, but still it's a spectacular shot.
Whereas psychologically, when you're in the car, the guy behind you seems huge in your mirrors. Big difference.
So Fittipaldi now in pursuit of Mansell. Al Unser Jr. has the lead. No driver has ever won at both Milwaukee and Detroit. Seems though, like we said something earlier this year, no one had ever won at Long Beach and Indianapolis. Little Al is rewriting the record books.
Well, only 3 drivers in this field have competed in all 6 Detroit Grand Prix. Interestingly, a real changing of the guard issue.
Now, Emma's faced with the same decision that Tracy had. He's going to have to take a hard run while his tires are good at Mansell, or forget about passing Mansell at least until after the pit stops.
You see the rest of the group coming down in pursuit behind Fittipaldi. Gugelmin, Rahal, Bobby Villeneuve, and Robbie Gordon. Rahal looking for position on Mauricio Gugelmin.
Now remember, this track, unlike a lot of the others, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, has no real long straightaways with hairpin or real long turns at the end, which is normally where the passing happens.
Watching 5th through 9th. 10th place now is Mario Andretti.
Gugelmin, the first car in this group here, is a veteran of 74 Grand Prix. His best finish ever was 3rd.
This is that great helicopter shot. Remember, the helicopter can fly at about 130 miles an hour. The Indy cars just drive right away from it.
Sure gives you a good idea which way the turns go and what the drivers have to be looking at.
That's the battle for the front of the field. Here it is again. It's first Al Unser Jr. and then Paul Tracy.
Remember last week at Milwaukee, the Penske's did not qualify right at the front, but once the race started, they just swarmed to the front. That was a 1-mile oval, a completely different configuration than this track. Here again, almost the same thing happens. Mansell seemed to have them handled in qualifying and then has surged, they have surged past him.
So at the front of the field, Nigel Mansell, who picks up the lead from the pole, is then passed by first Unser Jr. and then Paul Tracy. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
Category.
For the first time in his IndyCar career, Al Unser Jr. is leading at Detroit in the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. But there was earlier incident, and now a yellow outstanding to guard this car, Raul Boisel. Jack, what's the story here?
Well, Paul, we checked with Raul Boisel with his crew, and Mo Nunn is calling the shots down here. Mo, what did Raul tell you over the radio about the condition of the car?
Raul said the dash just went out and the engine died. Other than that, we don't know.
Has it refired?
Sorry?
Has it refired?
No.
Paul, they seem to think it might be an electronic problem, but from all the smoke that we saw, it also could be an expired motor.
Well, we'll keep an eye on Raul Boisel, who's in a precarious position. What you just saw was Teo Fabi, as he had to maneuver out and around none other than Mike Groff. There's Groff's car. He was involved in that incident earlier on, and he's back out on the course. But now they go to a full course yellow, and that is to recover the car of Raul Boisel. They thought that was too precarious a position, and so we're now full course yellow. The field will line up behind the PPG pace car and Al Unser Jr., and reform, and we'll go racing again with 8 laps complete here of the 77 in Detroit. Finish line. There's the bend just before. The pace picks up. Al Unser Jr. brings them back toward the green flag.
Idea, of course, at a restart is to gain as much advantage as you can so the guy behind you can't take a swing at you going into the turn. That's obviously what little Al and Paul Tracy were trying to do.
I'll tell you what, it's exhilarating from where we watch to see these restarts. We are sitting literally right on the edge of the track, overlooking the wall, just a few feet down from the start-finish line. When the cars go past here under acceleration, they actually rock the broadcast booth back and forth. Emerson Fittipaldi taking a look at Nigel Mansell now. Guzman at the same time looking at Fittipaldi. Back through the field now. There's Guzman. There's Rahal. The yellow Pennzoil car is Fabi. Then Villeneuve and Robbie Gordon in the Valvoline car. We ride with Robbie Gordon, Jack Arute.
And Paul, Robbie Gordon has his share of problems this afternoon, not in the cockpit of the car as you ride along with him, but on pit road. All these teams need base stations in order to maintain radio communications all the way around this big racetrack in Belle Isle. The base station for Team Walker has conked out. They're working on it, but so far Derek Walker and the team can only speak to Robbie Gordon as he comes down the front stretch and heads into turns 1 and 2. You've got to be brief and got to be specific and definitive.
Well, the good news is that the telemetry coming out of that car to Ford Electronics is terrific. Notice that he is using mostly 5th and 2nd gear. He only really passes through 3rd gear for a little while and then comes back down into 2nd whenever he gets in traffic.
And notice he's turning a little over 13,000 RPM, Paul. And again, you mentioned the 2nd. I was going to mention that. He runs an awful lot of this track in 2nd gear because the straightaways are so short and the turns are somewhat of the same radius.
There's talk of Robbie Gordon going into Winston Cup racing with his longtime mentor, Michael Kranifus, who has formed a team looking for a really hot driver. This is a man very high on his list. That would be a loss, of course, to IndyCar racing.
Michael Kranifus has been prominent here at the track this weekend. Just ahead of Gordon, Villeneuve, and then Fabi. Bobby Rahal now sits in 6th place. We'll come up and take a look at Rahal as he chases Mauricio Guzman.
Yes, and I was just going to mention as you watch the telemetry stuff coming out on the engines and stuff, everybody probably wonders, how does the driver know when to shift? They actually get to where they can hear the engine. You notice the rev limiters will cut off on Robbie Gordon's, for example, just above 13,000, but he can hear that engine, so he shifts just before the rev limiter comes in.
Coming back to the lead at the Detroit Grand Prix as we take a look at Al Unser Jr. with Paul Tracy now beginning to give him some pressure.
This is the first time this year that we've really seen a clear battle between Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy, 2 very hot men for the Penske team. Obviously, I said earlier, I believe Tracy is under a lot of pressure not to make a mistake. He's running well back in the championship, 16th. He really needs a success, and he needs to stay on the road.
Pit side once again. Gary Gerald as Adrian Fernandez is in the pits, and it just stalled the engine.
Yeah, Paul, it's a tough one. He came in with a suspected flat tire. They engaged the clutch, and it stopped dead. Now they get it restarted, and Adrian is away to the Gallus team. Remember, last year he finished 7th here, and Rick Gallus had 3 men in the top 7 as Danny Sullivan won. Al Unser Jr., his driver at that time, was 6th. Fernandez started today in the 6th row, but some early disappointment now with an obstacle to try to overcome.
Suspected flat. Was it flat? Gary?
Have not been able to see which one. Now I can see one that may be down, Paul. They're pulling them back over the wall, and a lot of traffic here.
Gary,
certainly find out.
Certainly Adrian Fernandez is one of the most charming young men around this business. He can get a sponsor, keep people interested in the sport. It's around drivers like this that I think the future of the sport will revolve.
Back at the front of the field, Al Unser Jr. being pursued by teammate Paul Tracy.
Adrian Fernandez, I just want to throw a little bit on him. He's very good on the road circuits. Has an awful lot to learn on the ovals. He doesn't seem to be shining there, but get a track like this, he really is fast, has a lot of experience.
First, Al Unser Jr. Second, Paul Tracy. Nigel Mansell, car number 1, sits there in third in the Texaco Newman Haas Lola. Now, he's quite a story lately, and there was a strong indication that there was going to be a news conference concerning Nigel Mansell immediately after this race. And then that went away. Now the next rumor is there's going to be a news conference held in London on Tuesday. That seems to be a real possibility. Look at him smoke the tires there. He's back fully on style. The strongest rumor, and we reported just as that, seems to be that there is a good chance that Nigel Mansell will drive in Formula One in the races that do not conflict with IndyCar. As we hear more on that, we'll certainly update you.
Well, can I just throw in a little rumor, Paul, that I'm pretty sure is true. Nigel will be going with Formula One next year at least. This goes on past your rumor. And none other than Michael Andretti is going to be driving this car.
Rumor Central in full tilt here.
Well, you know, if you go to the Newman Haas trailer where you can buy model cars and T-shirts and stuff, you can buy 1/43rd scale models of Mario's car and Nigel's car. Mario's car is $22 and Nigel's is only $20. And I asked, well, why is Mario's more expensive? And they said, well, it's his last year. I think they're going to add $2 to Nigel's model too, don't you?
I don't know. I have some doubts. Nigel seems to be, from time to time, quite happy in Indy cars. He may drive some Formula One, but I think he'll keep his focus here. Al Unser Jr., though, is the focus of this race as he continues his... The full course yellow is about to come out in the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. That car on the left, the MyJack car 19, is Alessandro Zampedri, whom you may remember from the starting situations in Australia, but this time not his problem. Dominic Dobson spun in front of him, and Zampedri just got caught, pulled out to the wall.
Boy, Dominic made a bad boo-boo, left Zampedri with no place to go. Look at him, just collected him up. Cars were really getting together. It's lucky he didn't crawl up on top of the other car there, Paul.
Ideal time for the pit stops. Al Unser Jr. on lap 21 takes advantage of the full course yellow that is now out and comes into the pits, as does Gugelmin, Villeneuve, Nigel Mansell. They have all come into the pits just in the few seconds between the start of that accident and the full course yellow coming out.
And remember on the pit stops, first in, first out. The guys that can come in the quickest go out, and they're at the head of the stereo scoring in the lineup. And that's so important on a track that is so hard to pass on.
Remember, too, there is a speed limit in the pits, so there's every time that there's a mass pouring into the pits, we know there's a chance that someone will exceed that limit and get a black flag.
But what it does is gives Nigel Mansell the lead. Newman Haas got him out ahead of everyone else as they came into the pits, and now he looks for the pace car to pick up the pace car under the full course yellow. Let's update in a few minutes the Mike Groff situation. He has now been thoroughly checked over, and in a moment we'll be able to talk with him. Jack Arute is pursuing him. In the meantime, we'll go to Gary Gerould.
Paul, you mentioned that race coming out of the pits was won by the Newman Haas team, but it was very close with Jacques Villeneuve. They nearly touched wheels as they exited pit road and got out onto the race circuit. Neither man willing to back off. Mansell ended up with the advantage, but the young rookie from Canada was sensational, and he is just a pit or two in front of Mansell coming out. It was very hairy down here.
So Nigel Mansell, without question, someone to watch this weekend. Started on the pole, was soon passed by Al Unser Jr. And then under these pit stops, the scoring's been somewhat scrambled. For the moment, you see the 2 car of Fittipaldi sitting just in front of him. Fittipaldi has made a stop as well. We'll wait until they come past the start-finish line again, and we'll sort out the scoring totally. But right now, Al Unser Jr. is lined up just ahead of Mario. And then, as you look back through the field, there's the 2 car of Fittipaldi. and Nigel Mansell. So it's Belle Unser that comes to the front of the field when we are ready to go back to green flag racing. After this message and a word from our ABC stations. Down below, they're still behind the pace car in a full course yellow. Arranged this way, Unser Jr., then Mario Andretti, then Paul Tracy, then Brian Herta, Emerson Fittipaldi. Nigel Mansell is in 6th position, actually sitting behind the pace car. Fittipaldi is up just a bit on that. Let's go to Jackaroo.
Well, we're with the man that participated in the first full course caution of the afternoon, Mike Groff. First of all, Mike, we know you're okay, but what was the condition of the car? What happened?
The car was actually okay. We went into the tires, unfortunately. That's not the way that we like to get on TV here, but I think the Motorola car was poised for some good running today, but we had some problems with the brakes. I noticed it on the first turn. The front's locked up big time, and I went into turn 3, and the car just went straight on. We carried on, and the car progressively, the brakes locked more and more. Now they can't even tow the car, so we had a mechanical problem.
At the drivers' meeting this morning, they talked about some of the improvements here at Detroit, namely runoff areas. Did that help you today?
No question about it. I think the organizers of this race and car did a great job getting the tires up. Like I said, it's not. I hate to be the one talking about it, but it's great that they're up. We're going to look into what our problem was there, and we'll be back for Portland.
Well, thanks for stopping by. And let's check in with the man that was participating in the second full course caution. He's with our own Gary Gerald right now. Gary?
Jack, that's Dominic Dobson, and he made his way back across the racetrack. Dominic, tell us what happened back there in that traffic situation.
Well, the Pac West car had been running fairly well. You know, it's been a long weekend for us. We didn't qualify well. We'd moved up, but I believe I picked up some debris and punctured a rear tire. And the car was getting looser and looser, and I think it was going down. I just lost it here in turn 1. And I didn't contact too hard, but Zampedri was behind me. There was nowhere for him to go, and he ended up slamming into me. So, unfortunately, it put us both out. Sad way to end the day.
Yeah, I know. And you said it had been tough to qualify. Last weekend, it was such a great qualifying effort. You were up there in the 3rd row at Milwaukee.
Yeah, we did. We had a great qualifying on the mile oval, and I just want to thank my team. They worked very hard, and hopefully we can get 4 good cars ready and go to Portland next weekend.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Paul?
All right, let's reset this a little bit for you. We're under our second full course caution of the day. This one when the man you just saw, Dominic Dobson, spun in front of Alessandro Zampedri. We're going to let you look through the entire field here. Led behind the PPG pace car by Al Unser Jr., then Mario Andretti. 23 of the 28 cars that started are still on the same lap with the leader. And although Nigel was the pole sitter here last year, he never led. He did lead the first laps here today, now sits back in 6th position. And Brian Herta, who started 18th, is now in 4th position. But neither Brian Herta nor Mario Andretti, who sits in 2nd position, have stopped for their first pit stop of the day. So now we're beginning to see even more of the tactics play out here. Al Unser Jr., Mario Andretti, Paul Tracy, Brian Herta, and Emerson Fittipaldi are at the lead of the group behind the pace car in that order for the race. And there you see the rest of them. Villeneuve, Robbie Gordon, Teo Fabi, Mauricio Gugelmin.
Of course, if Mario's plan is to come in just before the track goes back to green, it'll put him completely behind all these other cars in a very bad position. So my guess on Mario is that he's going to go on, hope for another yellow flag. Some races, they just gamble on it. Sometimes they get them. It'd be a big gamble, though, Paul.
We take a look at the race summary at the conclusion of 24 laps with more cars out here in the early going than we had in last week's run at Milwaukee, which was spectacular in terms of mechanical achievement as well as racing, with only 1 car failing before the end of the run itself, though it was shortened by only 9 laps. Now, as the pace car works its way off the track, they head for the green flag once again. Led by Al Unser Jr., the green comes out. Mario Andretti is right behind him. But remember, Mario has not yet stopped.
And watch Paul Tracy. Mario's light on fuel. Tracy is heavy. Now watch this there. Pretty easy to pass. Tracy went right by Mario. This is the reason I think Mario's wanting to stay out, is so he can get another yellow and always stay up near the front.
Fittipaldi just ahead of Nigel Mansell. Fittipaldi is 5th.
Bobby, you made the point at the beginning that passing was going to require an act of bravery, but we have seen a lot of clear passing, and I wonder, last year there was a lot of talk about blocking on this track. I think no one is blocking, and the racing is much better for it.
So far right now, Stan, what we're seeing is clear passing by the Penske cars. We've not seen a clear pass by any other car. It would appear to me like the 3 Penske cars are out handling the other one pretty hard so far.
Herder is around Mario Andretti as well, and now Fittipaldi lining up behind Mario. Just ahead here, you've got the glimpse from Nigel Mansell's onboard camera. Now you see the three of them lying just ahead. Emerson Fittipaldi just in front, and that car number 6, of course, is Mario, with Emerson looking for all the room he can find, and Brian Herta and A.J. Foyt's number 14 just ahead of that.
He'd like to put a little pressure on Mario right there. That's the 6th car right there with the red letter on it, but right behind Ammo is none other than Nigel Mansell, so he's just afraid to get too far out of whack, because Mansell will get him right away.
Brian Herta runs in third now. The car is very light, as they have not made their stop for fuel, and both Mario Andretti and Brian Herta have carried the car 26 laps since their last stop, which is actually not the last stop, the start of the race. There goes Fittipaldi.
You can watch Nigel working up on him, getting closer. But Emo needs to move on ahead, but he's having a little problem getting any more speed out of his car. He doesn't seem to be handling quite as good as like little Al and Tracy are, Paul.
But this shot offers a superb comparison between the Penske car just ahead of Nigel Mansell with an Ilmor engine and Nigel Mansell with his Lola Ford.
So watching Nigel Mansell as he pursues Emerson Fittipaldi.
He moves right up on him in the tight turns, which is natural. Long straightaways, they move away a little bit.
The sheer difficulty of driving these cars is apparent from these onboard cameras, because you see the number of shifts they have to make, but also the number of small changes to the steering wheel. And you see the barriers run from side to side, the need for absolute precision, and also for looking ahead. If the car, it's 2 cars up, gets in trouble, then you have to know about it. You can't just focus on the road or the car right in front of you.
Riding with Nigel Mansell. From time to time, a little breakup on the signal from the camera. Look, though, Nigel, who started on the pole, has fallen steadily backwards here on the 27th lap, sits in 6th place.
He actually didn't come out of the pits too fast. Their pit stop was a little bit slow, and he lost a lot of positions right there, Paul.
He also knows that he must, if he's going to mount a championship effort, he knows he must succeed today and that he must succeed on road courses.
Mansell still looking for any opportunity on Fittipaldi. And that's where the battle lies. Mario, then Fittipaldi, then Mansell, then Villeneuve, then Gordon, running from 4th back through the field. In fact, from 4th back, they are lined up tightly together. You get a good glimpse of that right there.
Fittipaldi, the only 2-time winner of this race in the race. A very tough customer here. Very confident this morning as I saw him signing autographs, walking around. With Emerson, you can tell when he's confident because he shows himself to the public. He's out around. He was confident this morning.
Of the field, it remains Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy. They are not in contest with one another right now. On board now with Scott Goodyear, who runs in 14th place, just ahead of him on the course. From time to time, you should get a glimpse of Stefan Johansson.
Here's a boy that's had a lot of problems so far this year. He just not seemed to working too good with this team. Either that or the team's not working too good with him, but really hasn't been very fast all year.
He's come up from qualifying position of 21st to run 14th now.
Telemetry here from Delco Electronics. A little different display.
Look at the lateral G's. The meter, the second one from the right. Tells you how much hold he's getting in the turn, how hard his head is pitching over. You can just imagine what that meter is doing. Right and left hand turn.
Here's a man, of course, a Canadian who would love to succeed here. There are 3 Canadians in the race. Paul Tracy is the front-running one at the moment. Jacques Villeneuve is in 7th. He's the second-running Canadian. And Scott Goodyear is the, so to speak, bringing up the rear.
Scott Goodyear's best finish here, an 8th, both in 90 and 91. Of course, driving for a different team at that time.
He would love to succeed in front of his countrymen, of course. Anyone would. And he's never been successful, as you point out, Paul, here.
So Scott Goodyear tries to pursue the rest of the field, which for the moment is strung out just a bit, with 29 of 77 laps complete and Little Al leading. Nigel Mansell now on the move as he is strongly in pursuit of Emerson Fittipaldi, has closed up to just behind him.
He takes a run at him, he gets up there, works him real hard, and then he backs off. What he's doing is he's locking up his front brakes a little bit on some of the turns that he's like to pass Emmo on. Look how close he is right now. Now he's starting another pressure run on him, Paul.
So Mansell right in close competition now. Close contact, though Fittipaldi handling a little better through these corners. These shots from overhead give you a great idea, a good perspective of the closures under braking and then under acceleration.
What he's doing is he wants to put the pressure. He's putting the pressure really hard on Emmo, and he wants him to feel the pressure. He wants Emmo to make a little bit of a mistake. Obviously, Emmo's car is not working as good as the two other Penske cars.
Remember that when we have these great chopper shots like this, there is an optical effect that you have to take into consideration. When they seem to be further apart on the straight than they are in the slow turns, that's not necessarily because the car ahead is out accelerating or out speeding the other one. It's just that the time interval between the two cars is still the same, but that time interval is bigger. I mean, the distance interval is bigger on the straight than it is in a tight turn.
So at the front, it remains out.
Together could provide some action.
And you can certainly see the different lines.
Oh, Mario's off course and into the tire barriers. His last race at Detroit, but remember, they got Mike Groff out of the barriers and got him going. You can't tell how much damage might exist to the front of the car, but the fact that he's in so deeply, especially with the left side, there may be some damage there.
It's so easy sometimes. It's going to damage the wings for sure, and sometimes maybe the suspension, like it did on Mike Groff, but maybe it didn't hurt very much. You know, it's so easy to get into the tires here on a course like this. I'm sure we can see his front wings have been hurt quite a bit there because you can see the tires wrapped around it. They're really good. So it's not good news for Mario.
Another issue is the car stalled, and how tough will it be to get it going again? Because if the damage is superficial, he could make it back to the pits and get a new nose cone. Trouble is, look at the time that's being lost.
And look at the skid marks. He just came straight off the corner on the exit, Bobby.
Yes, he did, but that's also could have been from oil that somebody dropped on the road, or there could have been another car that he was lapping that was having a bit of a problem. That's very often what happens in a track like this.
Well, remember last year, Bobby, they really had just a single groove to run in by this part of the race because the tires had worn so much. The rest of the track was what we call marbles. And this year it's better. The tire compound is different for this race than it was last year. It's a little bit harder. But even so, by this point in the race, if you get off the line very much, you can get in trouble.
Well, Mario sat there so long that he's just pretty much out of the race right now. Even if he gets back in, he's totally out of contention. He's hung up with the tires too hard.
Ford Electronics on board Robbie Gordon's car. Boy, they've done a nice job with this, too, giving us the gear as well. The report, of course, from the IndyCar safety team, we could pretty much tell Mario Andretti is not injured in that accident. You'll see him coming up on the left. Well, gone.
Just watch the speedometer where it says MPH over there. Watch how fast these cars accelerate. They'll go from almost nothing into way over 100 miles an hour and just almost nothing flat.
Look at this fight with Villeneuve. They continue to battle for 5th place.
Two young guys that really have a lot to prove.
Both in their mid-20s. Jacques Villeneuve having his rookie year. Robbie Gordon, of course, his 3rd year.
Mario is staying in with that car. That was our broadcast booth that just flashed by on the left there, right on the edge of the course. A terrific view. And they've got Mario started again. And we'll look at the car for damage.
Look at that car. It's still basically together. Now, how in the world could you have a wreck like that and not have any more problems? Look at the wings are still on it. The wings are still there. It's amazing what those tires will do to cushion a crash.
You know, for years, barriers with no protection.
That would have normally been hitting a cement wall or something like that would be a $100,000 wreck. Really
what a simple solution, the used tires.
And they band them together. If you don't band them together with the steel straps, they don't work.
Let's go up forward now. Nigel Mansell as he chases Fittipaldi. Jack Arute, you have an addition?
Well, it just goes to show you the cooperation. At last year's drivers' meeting at this race, the drivers brought up a point about in the runoff areas, if they could add more rows of tires, they thought they could slow the cars down with less damage. That's what Wally Dallenbach, Kirk Russell, and the rest of them did. And there you see it. Saved $100,000 for Mario Andretti.
And so simply, too. Mansell now in pursuit of Fittipaldi. This is a fight for third.
But earlier, Mansell, I noticed, was having trouble with his right front wheel locking up under braking. Now, if he's going to get by Emerson, it's probably going to be under braking, and yet he is not able really to brake that deep. It's going to be interesting to see if he's able to get by, exactly what tactic he uses.
Well, Sammy pushes on him really hard, just as he did earlier. Then he backs off a little bit, lets Emo have a little breather. What it is, still the same old deal. He's trying to worry him to death before he takes a real hard run at him.
So Mansell in pursuit. Allenser Jr. leads Paul Tracy by 6 seconds, so no contest at the front of the field. We'll continue to watch Fittipaldi and Mansell. Mark Smith just ahead of them. This could be the other thing that Mansell waits for, which is a slower car, and use him for a billiard shot.
Yes, that's what I started to mention, Paul. You got it just before I did. Look at Mansell now. He's right on Fittipaldi's tail. This is when he's got to do it, because if he can lock Emo into a certain place behind Mark Smith, he gets by him real easy.
Yeah, Mark Smith didn't want any part of that.
Well, we're talking about sportsmanship here, though. He saw who was behind him. Mark Smith just intentionally pulled right over. It wasn't a let-by. He just deliberately made sure the track was clear for these two men.
Look ahead to Fittipaldi's car. From time to time on a gear change, you can see a flash of flame from the exhaust. The exhaust is just behind the half shafts, extending out to the two rear wheels.
That's caused by when you shift, the fuel keeps getting in the turbocharger. The turbocharger running like 1,800.
Oh, and Fernandez into the wall. He moves around. Apparently he's okay, though the right rear of the car looks like it suffered some heavy damage.
This time, the cash register is ringing. He has hurt the car.
Again, the IndyCar safety crews are right there, but this is a very precarious position.
A lot of warning before they get there. The flagmen around here really give the drivers a lot of warning so they don't get hit by another car.
Little Al comes in for a stop, Jack.
Scheduled stop for Al Unser Jr. Number 31, as you said, Al Jr. trying to change history by making it a winning car number in IndyCar competition. They are going to make, gentlemen, no changes on the car. They have completed the fueling. That's what they want to make sure they get a full load. They do. In 15.0 seconds.
Jack, of course, you mentioned that winning streak. This would be his 4th consecutive win if he can manage it. Only one other person has done that in recent history, and that is himself. He had a winning streak 4 in a row back in 1990.
As Little Al comes up to speed, Paul Tracy takes over the lead of the race. Little Al stopped on the 49th lap. But here's a change. The yellow comes out. So Al Unser Jr., if he could have held off for a lap, would have made the stop under yellow.
Yes, but it isn't going to hurt him too bad, Paul, because the other guys like Paul Tracy are going to have to go in. And this is going to turn out to be one of those situations where first in, first out. So she should end up being up near the front, with the exception of the ones that are out of phase on his pit
That's
stop.
what I was going to ask you. This is going to help those guys immensely.
It'll help them immensely right now.
Men like Brian Herter.
Now, Mario, of course, with his incident, has dropped back through the field and is not in competition for the lead of the race in any way. In fact, he's not in the top 20. They wait for Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi. There's Fittipaldi, Jack.
The teammates come together. Now, Emerson Fittipaldi was complaining about a slight push, so we'll wait to see if the crew will make any major changes. Paul Tracy is off and away as we continue to watch the service on Nigel Mansell's car as well. A very busy time in a full course yellow. Mansell continuing his work. Meanwhile, further up pit road, Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy have completed their work, while Robbie Gordon continues to get his service in his Valvoline machine.
Whoa, Fittipaldi on the roll comes out right alongside of Mansell. Mansell got scored with the lead of the lap because he's pitted on the other side of the line. Let's go to Gary.
Well, Paul, that situation resulted when Mansell started to accelerate out of the pits just as Jacques Villeneuve, 2 pits ahead, pulled in. They came within inches of hitting each other. Villeneuve stopped on a dime. Mansell hammered it and got out of there. He left rubber streaks all the way down pit road as he accelerated. But again, they were